Right, so well, I was looking at one of our favourite piffle peddlers, Ben Emlyn Jones, the other day. I'm not going to include any clips from his video, but he was doing a review of Project Blue Book, which he seems to think is a documentary. And he was doing a review of part 2, and he mentioned something in part 1, and he didn't look very happy about the fact that they were sort of going down the path of there was one of these crazy conspiracy theories that what crashed at Roswell was actually some sort of Nazi vehicle that was full of deformed children that Dr. Mengele had been experimenting on, and that was the path they took. So the underlying theme, of course, of the Project Blue Book television series, the first 2 episodes, at least anyway, is that it's all the UFO part of it is all to cover up American high-tech aircraft, and it's got nothing whatsoever to do with aliens or UFOs. And I think it's true that the CIA or whoever did used to infiltrate UFO groups, and the reason for that was that the Soviets apparently used to infiltrate UFO groups as well, because they could go along and have a look at air bases and all this sort of stuff, and they could see if they could spot any advanced American technology, nothing whatsoever to do with aliens, and of course that's an ideal cover. You're just another UFO nut, you know. Now, one of the things that I thought I'd done a video on this before, but one of the things Ben Emlyn Jones talked about was the secret KGB files. It was a documentary that came out some time ago, and Roger Moore was in it. And Ben seemed to think that this had some credibility, this KGB UFO files. He said they dug one up. Well, did they? You certainly don't see them digging one up in the documentary. Now, I think the bit he's referring to is this. Now, let's just have a quick look at the actual documentary. I'll leave a link to this below so you can watch it in its entirety if you're missing your antipsychotic medication.
Interested in UFOs than some of our latest aircraft.
And here you see the man who is probably the head KGB agent, directing the cameraman to point his camera toward the disc. A total of almost 1,200 feet of negative were recovered just on this crash site. It is possible that more film was shot, but this is all that we were able.
As I've said in the past, it's, UFOs aren't going to come here and crash. That doesn't mean they're infallible. I've heard Ben say, at what point does the technology become infallible? Well, it doesn't. But it would be self-healing and all this sort of stuff. It would be seriously advanced technology. It's not going to crash. All critical systems are going to be duplicated. Even if you go back to Blake 7, which I think was shot in the 80s, I think the Liberator, their spacecraft, was self-repairing, wasn't it? It was always, if it got damaged, it would self-repair itself. UFOs, alien spacecraft are not going to come here and crash. It's nonsense.
Able to obtain. None of this film depicts the removal of the disc itself.
And that's because it's not a complete disc. I'll show you what I mean in a few minutes.
And at no point do we see inside the object.
Yeah, we don't see inside it. We don't see it being moved. We don't get any close-ups of it. This is all suggestive of either some Russians have done this, got some actors, and they've done this because they've heard that these stupid Americans will pay a lot of money for UFO films. Or the Russians have thought they'd just have a bit of fun with the Americans and see if they could fool them into thinking that they actually recovered some alien technology. What it isn't, of course, is alien technology. It's just it's nonsense. It's very poorly done. If you look at it, this thing here, it's leaning up against some trees, and they've just scooped up. They just put a lot of debris, leaf debris and what have you, all along the bottom there to cover where the thing supposedly enters the ground. Where the thing supposedly enters the ground. Okay. So why not brush all this away and let us see all these jagged edges? You know, let's just have a bit of a look at that. We don't see any of that. This is a movie type prop, leant against a tree. Brush the scrub up against it. It's very obviously a fake. It requires zero serious analysis. It's like the stupid rubber alien, you know, the alien interview. It's just nonsense. No one with an IQ bigger than their shoe size is going to waste their time on it. Anyway, let's just continue on a bit.
From this angle, we do see the handheld camera shooting behind or inside the disc.
Yeah, we don't see any of that footage though, do we?
However, that footage, if it was in fact ever shot, was not included in the cans of film we acquired.
And why do you think that might be, Mr. Moore?
We can only speculate that it may still be at large. We must also speculate on how the object ended up here. Based on information from Vereshchagin's book and what we can see in this footage, we have created this computer-animated version of how researchers believe the crash may have occurred.
Yeah, well, there'd be a bit of a trail of debris, wouldn't there? You know, we don't see any of that. This is in the animation. This is an animation. Remember, they don't show what they don't show that there's bits coming off it, and they don't show the Russian soldiers looking along that line. You know, looking around in here with metal detectors, maybe. Probably wouldn't be metal if it was an alien spacecraft. But we don't see any of that, do we? This is supposedly 1969. They probably would have thought it might have been made of metal. Why aren't they all looking around with metal detectors?
Questions then become, where did this object come from and how did it come to crash?
Came from a shed in Stalingrad, probably. So got a few carpenters to knock it up.
Here, and more importantly, what has happened to it since? Coming up next.
Okay, now there is something I want to show you that that I think fairly convincingly shows that it's a fake. So I'm just going to stop this clip here, and we'll go on to the next clip. Right, here we have one of our favourite old frauds, Stanton Friedman.
And
This is the same video.
somebody had monitored this on radar from whenever. Satellites, we had satellites, they had satellites at that time. Or just a report from a local person. And
okay, now I'll show you this in more detail in a minute. But what clearly gives this away is this. If you look here, there's a straight edge. Goes through 90 degrees there, and it comes up, and the straight edge goes in there, and they brush the debris up along there to cover the fact that this is just a sort of semicircular thing. They've knocked up, propped it up against some trees, they've swept up some leaf debris or something like that to cover the point where it supposedly enters the ground. I don't really understand why supposedly serious investigators would waste their time with this, analysing it, because this, and I'll just show you that in a little more detail. If I go to there. Okay, so that's a shot. That's a shot, and I've just blown that up a little bit so you can see it a little more clearly. As you can see, you've got the edge where it supposedly enters the ground, and you've got all the debris swept up against the edge, except for where you come right to the end there, where you can see, there you go, it's a straight line, goes through there, and it goes down there, because this is a fake, it's a prop. It's half a saucer propped up against a tree, some debris swept up against it like that to cover the point where it supposedly entered the ground. So there we are. So that's this is the UFO that I think Ben Emlyn-Jones was talking about. The Russians dug one up. Nah, the Russians filmed a fake, a movie prop propped up against some trees because they'd heard the stupid Americans would pay a lot of money for such footage. The same goes for the alien autopsy part of it. I'll show you a bit of that as well, but that's very obviously fake as well. Absolute bloody rubbish. That's what this is. This KGB UFO Files, and if they really paid a lot of money for this, they have seriously been had. So there you go, that's the same shot. I just photographed it while the thing was running so I could get rid of the red line and the timestamp. You can see the timestamp there, it's 41:28 into the video, the link I'll leave below to this. I'll leave the link below to this video, and you can look at it yourself. And if you pause it there, you can clearly see that straight line, 4128. So why any serious investigators would, well, mind you, Stanton Friedman wasn't really a serious investigator, was he? He was just a piffle peddler that made a living out of convincing the gullible that there was something to the Roswell story. I think that was his claim to fame. Of course, there wasn't, as we all know. Just let's run on a little bit.
And the kicker is the fact that you get troops out there and a cameraman doesn't necessarily mean it's a flying saucer.
Oh, well done, Stanton. There we go. He's trying to boost his credibility here by suggesting there may be some doubt. That's what he's doing.
We need to be a little cautious about jumping to conclusions.
Well, not really, because if you look at it carefully, you can see that it's a movie prop propped up against a tree. It doesn't bear any more analysis than that.
Now, I think that film is worth a detailed investigation. Those things cost a lot of money, actually.
Yeah, so send me your money, and I'll do a detailed investigation.
Sure. To go over it, you have different specialists looking at it. You know, are the uniforms correct for the time frame? Is the film actually made in the Soviet Union?
Well, if the film was a bit more convincing, then it would be worth that sort of level of research. You know, is the film of the right age, the right sort of film stock, etc.? Are the uniforms correct? Are the vehicles correct? But when you actually watch the film, it becomes obvious very quickly that it does not bear any further research. It's a joke, really. It's not even very well done. So, if he thinks this is good enough to go to that length, then he's either not very good at this, or he knows it's a fake, but he wants to take people's money to research it. I suspect. Probably the latter, and then you can say at the end, "Oh well, yeah, I think it's a plywood flying saucer." But by that time, of course, he's taken $100,000 of other people's money.
We asked Russian film expert Sergei Goncharov to examine the film for its authenticity. He first explained the background of the film cams.
And this is the name of the factory.
Yeah, all this is meaningless, you know, because if you're going to make a film, if you thought you were going to get a lot of money from the Americans for making a UFO film, you'd make sure it was shot on the right film stock. You'd probably make sure the uniforms were right. You'd probably make sure the vehicles were right. You'd also think they'd take a little bit more care with the filming. All right, well, I think we'll just have a very quick look at the autopsy and put this one to bed, I think. Right, this is from the same video, as I said earlier or later. I'll leave a link to this below. The first thing we notice, of course, is that the video quality is very poor. It's all overexposed, exactly the sort of thing you'd expect from someone peddling a fake. If this was a real alien, they would make sure that they captured every single detail, you know, as well as they could, and that's not what they're doing here.
The individual seen here appear.
There's no close-ups. You know, you get detailed. If that was an alien, you get every single detail you could. You would get detailed close-ups. People have pointed out they're not wearing any protection. If this really was some sort of extraterrestrial biological example, you'd want to be wearing at least face masks, you'd think.
Appear to be forensic pathologists or biological research scientists. Speaking in Russian, they are seen inspecting the specimen, the leader of the procedure describing his actions and the measurements they are taking. After several minutes of this, there is a change in camera angles.
Well, they probably got some Russian animal and took a blow lamp to it. I suppose they could have fabricated the thing with the 3 fingers, or 4 fingers.
Now,
okay, so yeah, 3. So you got the what's it? 3 fingers and an opposing thumb, maybe, or 2 fingers here and 2 fingers there. But really, this is not. I don't know. It could be anything, couldn't it? I mean, there doesn't appear to be a joint there. It's not going to be a terribly flexible thing, is it? They're talking about cutting through the ribs. Well, why would they expect it to? Well, why would they expect it to have ribs? You know, it might have some sort of exoskeleton. It's certainly small enough to have a sort of shell type construction to it. But no, I don't think this is. I don't think this is terribly convincing. I think this was done by the same team that organised the actors to go out with the plywood flying saucer, and yeah, it's all part of the same operation.
We see the specimen being more extensively examined.
Yeah, and another thing that occurred to me as well with these alien autopsy type fakes. You never ever see X-rays, do you? They never say, okay, we got this alien and we're going to dissect it, but before we dissect it, what we're going to do is we're going to thoroughly X-ray it, so we can X-ray every piece of it, so we can see what the internal structures are like. You know, does it have bones, or some sort of equivalent to bones? Does it have a skeletal form? You know, is it an exoskeleton type arrangement? These are the X-rays of the hands and the feet and the torso, the thorax, whatever you want to call it, and the head. We never ever see any X-rays, do we, of these things? And I think that gives it away as well, because it would be a lot harder to make something up that you could X-ray and look convincing. As I said, this is really not convincing. I think this really could be anything, and the fact that there are no, there's not more than one cameraman. You'd certainly want to make sure that you captured this in great detail, so there'd be more than one cameraman. There will be close-ups. The lighting would be correct. It wouldn't be all over the place. So I think it's very safe to put a line through this as being a fake. It's a rubbish. See, there's not enough of it to be able to glean any sort of realistic information from it. They have to do that. Excuse me. That's why they have to have the model hand with the 4 fingers. Because if that wasn't there, people would say, well, what's this, you know? What is this? You know, a duck, a pig, so it could be anything, couldn't it? Anyway, I'm afraid I can't be bothered to edit the coughing out, so that's going to have to do. Needless to say, this is another fake UFO production. This is from the secret KGB UFO files. No such thing, of course. Ben Emily Jones seems to think this is real, but of course it's not. It's just another lot of fabricated rubbish. Absolute rubbish. All right. Well, as always, thanks for watching. Maybe I'll catch you again.